Good morning. Thank you for being here. Just a reminder with the announcement there. Next weekend, there's the pop-up carnival that is being hosted by a group of people investing for good. And during that time, or during the 6 to 8 p.m. time, there will be an open house for the community to come and hear more about our request for an interim use permit to have the 2 tiny homes on site and for now. And also there's a demonstration tiny home out there that's vacant that people will be able to visit. And so you'd have a chance to do that. As we begin, I want to read one verse from the scripture reading today. For we hold that a person is justified by faith apart from works prescribed by the law. To me, this speaks to this project because and the work of the campus task force, campus planning task force, because it's not specific things that we are required to do. Instead, God justifies us by faith. And that opens the door to be creative. And so I hope in this whole process as a congregation that we can use our creativity to try to understand the possibilities that are there. There's not one right answer for where we might be led, but I think we have some possibilities to explore. And so I invite you to join me in prayer. Gracious God, we pray for your grace. We thank you for your blessings. And we pray that as we seek to use your blessings and delight in your blessings, that we will be strengthened in faith and that we will press on as your people to do your work. Amen. The council took action to form a campus planning task force, which was assigned the following tasks: satisfying compliance issues raised by the city of Roseville with our current interim tiny home settlement. The steps that need to happen now are holding an open house next week. The units have to be anchored, and we have to submit an interim use permit, the materials for that. The second task after that kind of immediate issue is that the task force is to lead the congregation in a discernment process to determine whether or not to form an ongoing sacred settlement of micro homes. This is not a decided issue. It is an issue that we need to be discerning about. The task force will be working on that and going through discernment process, but then they will invite the congregation in as well so that we can work together. Roseville expects a decision by the beginning of October. So the process needs to be of discernment needs to be completed by then. The campus planning task force will gather information and share it with the congregation. The congregation will discern whether or not to pursue an ongoing sacred settlement. If the pathway is clear from the campus planning task force and from initial discussions with the congregation that that's not a path we need to pursue, there won't need to be a congregational vote. However, if we have, if it seems that it's something we do think is worth pursuing, then there would need to be a congregational vote to go forward with that. The vote would need to take place by the end of September because of that October timeline. The third task of the Campus Planning Task Force is to develop a master plan for ministry and for the use of our current facility, as well as the 2¼ acres that we have to the south, and the total property, total campus of Prince of Peace. This may include projecting upgrades and maintenance for our current facility and property. I know the council is proposing, I believe, to put a budget kind of escrow account. Is it going to be, Michael? Their proposal is that each year a certain amount will be set aside in an escrow account that can be used for major projects at a later time, and upgrades or maintenance that needs to be done. So trying to get ahead of the game. The other thing, we want to consider the things that we value at Prince of Peace and sustain those things, but also consider other projects and possibilities for the resources that we have. We're reviewing ideas that were proposed from past surveys of the congregation, ideas that have been proposed in past times with the congregation, as well as brainstorming by the task force, and an opportunity like today, where the congregation has a chance to submit further ideas. And you're welcome to submit ideas at any point for us to look at. So we want to look at possibilities for our entire property. These aren't to be done step 1, step 2, step 3. Obviously, the interim use permit is an immediate step, so that's getting a little more attention right away. But the goal is to look at all of these as a whole, because they're all going to be influencing each other. June and July will largely be a time for information gathering, consideration of possible ideas, share ideas that have arisen. We'll share them with you, some of the things we're looking at, and you'll have a chance to add your own ideas. We've also looked at decision factors, determining things that are important to us when making a decision of this sort. What's going to guide our decision-making process? What are the most important factors for us to consider as we make decisions? You can have input on that as well. The task force has talked about it, and we'll be sharing some of the things that they've developed also today. By August, we hope to have a general idea for a master plan of projects to be considered by the congregation, whether that's one project, whether it's 3 projects, but looking at the use of this resource that we've got. The city of Roseville, in our discussions with them, expects that we will have a decision about an ongoing sacred settlement of tiny homes, and we've determined that by October. Other projects would be presented before the end of the year to the congregation. Any timetable for actual implementation is still to be determined by Prince of Peace, and how that timetable actually falls into place. to emphasize, nothing is predetermined or pre-decided. There is an expectation, though, because of circumstances, working with an interim use permit and needing to look at a broader issue, that now is an opportune time to engage in planning for our future, because everything needs to fit together in some way or other. The Campus Planning Task Force, as I said, should complete its work by the end of 2023. And based on decisions of the congregation, new working groups would emerge to implement the decisions that the congregation makes. Hopefully you can see this a little bit. This looks at several of the tasks that are to be done, and then puts a little bar that shows the time frame in which those things will be dealt with. We have the interim use permitting, that's mainly May and June. Application development in that time and file. City council action will take place sometime in June regarding interim use permit. Settlement discernment taking place throughout this whole time, summer into September. Master plan development going till the end of the year. We've been creating a decision process and listing projects. There will be research of those projects, prioritizing, identifying possible combinations. Congregation will review and comment, and then the tiny home yes, go or no recommendation will be by the end of September. Design charrette. This is an opportunity that has arisen, that there are some people, it's kind of a pro bono sort of thing that architects do. And architects would look at our setting, our facilities, what we're proposing and ideas we have, and in the month of October would help us figure out how things can fit together. And so it's kind of an exciting prospect, but we'll need to have a general direction, a couple possibilities for them to work with. Okay. Developing master plan options by the end of the year, congregation review, and a final recommendation. So that's kind of the time frame we're working with. Congregation can engage in this process, and we please do so. I've been trying to write weekly updates. Those go out, are available on the website. They are sent out in the email at the end of the week, each week. So there are different ways to access. We have about 30 households in the congregation that have said, we just don't do technology. They receive a mailing of all that every week. And so, so that's also there. So the hope is that there will be good communication, and also an opportunity for you all to engage in feedback. You can also participate by talking to task force members or attending task force meetings. Our intent is to meet every other Monday at 6:30. There may be a couple exceptions to that, but our next meeting is May 22nd, right after the open house, when we will be hopefully getting through the actual interim use permit application materials. The people who were appointed by the council are me as the chair. Michael Stetzler is president of the congregation, and so ex officio on the committee. And then the others, James Erickson, Andrew Hanisch, Gus Haugand, Chris Henningsen, Christina Krepola, Diane Larson, Arjun Sethi, Esther Catley, Rick Rothhausen, Brian Wolf. Any of those here, please raise your hand so people can see you. Okay, those are people you are welcome to talk to. Also, there are several who have attended one or more times. Those include Ann Christ and Dennis Christ, Audrey Henningsen, Betchen Oberdorfer, Gary and Jean Olson, and Patty Russ Stoll, and Carol Swanson. And if you want to know their perceptions of the meeting or meetings that they have attended, you're welcome to talk to them as well. And hopefully then the information gets back to the committee. There's a list of projects, and maybe you want to pass out that sheet there for people to look at. Here's a list of projects, either using the current facility or the surrounding properties that are on the table for us to look at. And those pages are going out. On one side is a list of the people that I mentioned. On the other side are projects and decision factors that we are working with. And you'll have a chance today to brainstorm your own ideas and add those to the list. Childcare. We did some study on that, hit a roadblock of the need for a sprinkler system and the costs of that, but we don't want to take that just off the table. That is something that is of interest to people. Outdoor chapel, that's been kind of on the back burner for quite some time, has been a consideration. A retreat center came up in prior long-range planning, and nothing was finalized with regard to that. The sacred settlement is obviously something that we're working on. The affordable housing team spent many hours. The pandemic kind of put a roadblock in coming to the congregational meetings and being able to generate the congregational discussion that needed to happen and moving to a voting process. One of their projects was to consider an affordable housing apartment of approximately 30 units. And there would be a community center, there would be a counseling place that LSS would work with people in that setting. Solar power, there's been discussion of that. When the roof was done, there was work that tried to take that into account, and that would be a project that we would be looking at. The possibility of Habitat for Humanity row houses, that would, again, as with the affordable housing apartment, the Habitat for Humanity would also look at housing for lower income or people who make enough money to make the payments, but at a much lower than market level, so that families could locate in Habitat for Humanity row housing. Another suggestion that had come from a prior survey, divide the 2¼ acres into 4 lots and have Habitat for Humanity build 4 homes. That's probably not their preference, but it's a possibility that we would look at. Status quo, leave it as it is. The space to the south. Create more green space, planting prairie grasses, or expand the gardens and simply keep the land that we've got for future expansion or development. A senior center that could use this current facility, potentially an activity center, or senior housing. Unlike though the proposal from several years ago, there's been a lot of senior housing development right in this area. That wasn't the case when that was first on the table to do senior housing. Build a food shelf center. There's no food shelf in Roseville. Would it make sense to do something of that? Divest of the 2+ acres. The suggestion was to sell it to Roseville for expanded Central Park space. Another option that had been suggested was expand our flat or level parking over that direction. Another suggestion that has been made is get an electric sign out near County Road C and Victoria at the corner so that we expand our visibility. Another proposal that has been suggested was that the bathrooms in this area, part of our reconciling works proposal might look at changing the bathrooms to all single stall or single unit bathrooms so that there can be a comfort level for people with various in a gender affirming way and helping people and helping people with their privacy. So that's something else that we look at. Values that or decision factors that will be utilized. We have our 5 key values that we've raised up as a congregation, and those would be under consideration. Financial factors and affordability, huge issue. How do we plan in a way that's responsible financially? The task force wants to make sure that whatever projects we choose, that we are addressing compelling needs that are real. Wanting it to entail daily or regular use, that it be utilized whatever we choose to do. And of course, sustainability, viability, vitality, those are words that can have environmental implications, sustainability, but can also be the state sustainability of a program. Will it be able to be ongoing? Those starred or asterisk factors are ones that were especially important to the task force. Other things that were considered goals, support level, ministry, youth and family impact, relevance and longevity, context of the world, to remember that we are part of the world. We live in the world. Congregational needs are certainly an issue that continually has to be considered. Do we have the resources? Environmental impact. Will it build congregational membership? Will it open our doors or be a witness to the community that will draw people in and be a factor in people participating in the life of Prince of Peace? What I'd like you to do, there are some index cards and there are some pencils if people need them, but I'd like you to just kind of turn into smaller groups, and you've got the list of projects that have been on the table as well as decision factors, and I'd really like you to spend some time reviewing those, looking at those, and please write down on the card ideas that you may have come up with. And I think it would be preferable to do a single card for each project or decision making or decision factor that's new that you come up with. A single card, if you have several, if you have comments about projects that are on the table, please feel free to write a note on that, and we'll compile those, and those will help us in our review and in our understanding. Yes.
To rewrite the
Sure. Jean said, should we write if we have a pro or a con about an idea? That's fine too. But there are over 100 cards. There are lots of them, and they're easier to sort if we keep one or two plots and one on each card. So
I wasn't listening. One on each card.
that would be the preference. That would be the preference. So
Well, you guys know.
Very.
and yes, Debbie,
One idea per card.
that would be the preference. Yeah. If they're kind of related, or if there's a pro and a con about an idea, in that would be fine.
You got it.
But it's just easier to sort after the fact for us. There's about 15 minutes, so you've got a little bit of time, about 15 minutes to work on this. Then we'll come back and let people share the whole thing. And then got a final slide. So
Caring about. Yeah, I hope there's no. I would like to. I mean, I really. That's what they talk about here. And so I. Kind of on the deal with the. Four dams. The power. Whatever. Yeah, I think a lot of but so I mean, you know, we're talking. Well, I think that's. We're not being. Recommendation. I think.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that would be.
Yeah.
And get it over. That might possibly whatever you put on that. Or.
There's that sort of thing. So.
That looks like that. Service. And probably. Sorry, yeah, Lexington, what that's something already. Like the CRA source. Yes. Maybe because we have comments. This came forward on.
The thing was,
and I understand, I know why. I didn't even record.
I'm sort of looking at.
Yeah, it was, and then I.
They're targeting a different. You know, we've been talking about before housing, that's for housing, well, you're really not.
That
So
I-
people don't look
That's
back.
correct.
You know, they need housing, reason housing, the home. Does that.
Maybe that could still work, yeah, but.
There's so much that we could say, and what our levels think, what you can say otherwise. Because the affordable housing thing, you basically give away a good way to develop it, and they take care of the rest. So I don't do that.
It's, or, really. Yeah. That community. But. Almost. What issues? How. What are we doing for that? The rest of the church and like it's unfortunately. It's doing him.
The daycare. Well, yeah.
I mean, that can be part of the building, our goal. No, yeah. We like the, kind of like different. That's, you gotta be certain. It depends on how much space. How many homes are in the space and how much space you have. I mean, I would get it on that part. If you didn't take. If you get like. Just the concept of this. I don't. If you don't even want to, that's the main. Yeah. I
don't find this great. The nice thing about that is kind of one side of the like,
This first. So.
Going to be changed. I was sensitive.
It would be a development. Somebody.
Different of rezoning the past. But my understanding of road is considered trailing car. They don't have. Going. They must, because. I don't like to know about. I think for like an RV.
A lot of space.
Please try to wrap it up in about 3 or 4 minutes, so you can just don't worry.
The train tracks there.
Are you ready? I still have it down. I know initially that's all. And that's also. So many things.
You don't see.
It's one thing that the congregation. My fear is that too much stuff. That's all people that you want to check it out.
How does that work? Like this, you're buying. So it's a resource. It's not all donated through the same.
Right, well, for that, yeah. I use the class, I mean, rent it a lot of money. Spread.
They aren't staying for the land. Money has to get that's create for. They get a loan.
We have targets that are like. And well funded. Line items.
Income is 30, 60% of the median income. And have a job. It's also your second mortgage. That's the one. Covers the difference.
It seems that, there are some lively conversations going on. That's great. That's really a big part of what we wanted to do today. What I would like to do next is I don't want us to share right now pros and cons about these sorts of things. If you have pros and cons, please share them with a task force member or write them down. They will be taken under consideration. We appreciate that, but I think it's important that we all hear if there were other ideas or other additional projects that arose. Did anybody have something additional?
We can talk about it.
This was plenty, yeah.
It's plenty. It's plenty, but I would like, I think it's helpful if everybody has an idea that something else beyond this might be on the table. So, yes,
Yeah, we came up with a couple, making the sprinkler system a separate fees, whether it's daycare or not, to protect our building.
okay,
Handicapped accessibility. Our parking spaces need to be more accessible than just normal parking spaces. They have van accessibility. Seating in the chapels for handicap. And then do RIC inclusivity to invest in a consultant to help us create the proper environment for our RIC.
okay. Anything else? Yes, Stan.
This is, we shouldn't forget some of the old ideas because the consequence of implementing them will affect some of these. For example, several of the concepts, whether it's tiny houses, habitat, or other use there, will involve an $80,000 expense from the road up to the top of the hill to get water and sewer here, and then another amount of money to come in right on the wall over there below the office and bring it into the room downstairs. I mean, we have to consider these
Yeah.
things as we do that. They gotta be not forgot or we'll do
Right. Right. We'll be trying to consider every angle we can possibly come up with. We in the initial conversations with the city of Roseville, the city council even mentioned we might be able to help with if they're with infrastructure stuff. If if you're moving in that direction. So there are a lot of resources we would have to look at and try to tap into. So any other additional ideas? Oh, yes.
At one point in time, we were talking about additional lighting for the parking lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Especially down the Victoria. And the driveway, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yes.
You know, I was just wondering on the clarification, like on the two habitat ones, has there been any chance or thought put about, I mean, is that or I guess engagement with habitat, whether that's realistic?
Chris could answer that.
Yes, we met with the development manager for Habitat. He looked at the 2¼ acres and was extremely excited about what Habitat would like to do there. They would like to build 24 to 30 row houses by building a road right up the middle and putting row houses on either side of that road. Which would. Obviously, sewer and water would have to go. In that road and probably underground electricity to power.
So that was fairly recent.
That was back in February that I talked with him. They are waiting for the congregation to make a decision on whether they would be interested in having Habitat do that. So they aren't doing anything until they get the go-ahead from the congregation.
But they would pay for the sewer and stuff.
They would pay for the sewer and the whole works and all that stuff would be done. Paid for by
And the
Habitat.
land trust.
And they would give the land to the Rondo Land Trust in St. Paul. The land would go into a land trust. The Habitat properties, the land underneath Habitat Homes is owned by land trusts, not by the homeowner. So the homeowner gets a lease on the land trust. And so the land gets transferred. If we were to go the Habitat route, that property would get transferred from Principes to the Rondo Land Trust. And the Rondo Land Trust would give a lease to Habitat to build these row houses on it.
Chris. Does Habitat, would that accommodate? I don't know what section it is, but there's housing that where people pay. It would be for people to own. It
It
would
would
not,
be for people to own.
so. There would not be available, I'm understanding this, to mean that there would not be availability to people that were. Quite a bit below poverty.
People that could not have, that were not between 30% and 60% of the median income. Would not qualify as a Habitat property owner. So if you were
Because
below 30% of the median income
you would,
in this area, you wouldn't qualify to own one of those pieces of property.
David, and then Susan, and then I'm gonna kind of cut off, especially evaluation of projects that are there, but David.
Chris, in this case, does the church then get the money from the sale of the land, or do we just transfer the title?
I'm assuming we would just transfer the title. Habitat, that's what makes the row house affordable,
Right, I
is
understand.
that they don't have land costs.
Susan.
Just in the sacred settlement idea, you know, there's the bedrock is not just providing housing, but community. And, you know, interdenominational, does Habitat have anything as a part of that, the community part? Or-
They certainly do not have the settled concept of additional people coming in to council and all this stuff. Habitat has services, but there's services like home maintenance and
Okay.
things like that, but not addiction and health and those sorts of things are not services that Habitat provides.
Okay, thank you. Any other process questions, not specific? Were there any decision factors that people thought needed to be added to what we had developed? Yes, Susan.
I'm not sure if this is a decision, but we talked about what would give the energy to bring in more people to our congregation, to bring in younger people,
And
which ones of those would do that?
Yeah, I think that's building congregational membership was one of the decision factors. And I think that would certainly be part of it.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time, but thank you so much for the input. One other thing that I wanted to go through, oh, yeah.
I just wanted to tell you. Organizing that, so that we made it so clear. It's very clear.
Well, thank you. It was, I was hoping it would be clear. Just one other quick thing that we are trying to take into account in decision-making styles. This was from a book that Justin Grimm recommended to me. As we were doing, I think it's called Home Run Leadership. By somebody who lives just over in Shoreview or that, a retired principal. But he talks about the fact that some people are decision makers based on information. They need every fact they can get. They need reflection, feedback. Their basis is information. Some people deal with reactions. How does everybody react to this? They're trying to read the room and determine how people are reacting. The third is options. People who just thrive on ideas and choices and looking, and in some ways, that's part of what we're doing here too. And the fourth is decision makers. And decision makers really want to press on for the decision. And I think that's something. I was in the last congregation I served. When I first arrived, I did listening sessions with members, and the theme that kept coming back: we need to build, we need to expand our building, update our building. The cornerstone on the new facility was dated 14 years later. It was not a fast process. It was not a fast process, but some people will be ahead in the decision-making process. Some people will be dragging their feet. The goal that I have is to try to keep those lines of information going, making sure people understand and know what's going on as much as possible, but to respect the different styles of leadership. And the task force has all four of those type of people as part of the group. And the congregation certainly has that. We want to try to address all four of those factors and keep the information flowing, be sensitive to reactions, to review options, and also to go to decision. We're pressing towards some decisions that will help guide our future together. So thank you and God's blessings. Happy Mother's Day. And thanks for participating. Any of the index cards you have, please leave them and we'll pick them up. Leave them on a chair and we'll pick them up. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We left your name on the group there. Good part of it.
I understand. Yeah, I'm kind of more of a.
Well, I don't, but see, you're always saying. It's never been winning.
Yeah.